Hello everyone, welcome back after the Easter break. I hope you've had a wonderful holiday in terms of sunshine. The beginning of term service this term comes from the Rev study. Some people would say that Rev study is a little bit untidy. I just say that it's quite busy. Anyway, that's where it's coming from for the beginning of this term. Over the last few weeks I've really found it interesting seeing all the things that everyone's been up to. Some people have been doing a lot of exercising, cycling, running, walking dogs sometimes. I've had to do some dog walking myself. I've tried to improve my French using Duolingo, as I know some of you also do. I've watched some good box sets. I've also been doing some reading, and I read one book in particular that has been quite interesting for me as a book by a Catholic priest called Henry Nouwen, who collated all his letters over a period of time, and I've been reading through his letters. In one of these letters, this is what he says: "I'm struck that poor people are so attracted to the images of the suffering Christ. In Spain and South America and Latin America, Good Friday often seems more important than Easter. For many people, the most burning question is how to make it through another day. Looking at the crucified Jesus in his desolation, they can say, but we are not alone. He is with us. There we come to understand fully what it means that God is compassionate, that God is a God who suffers with us." And while I was reading that, I took out my crucifix that I bought in Uganda some years ago when we had a team of students out in Uganda, to remind me of the suffering Christ who is with us. And that image has stayed with me over this Easter weekend, as many people suffer throughout the world with this horrible virus. Henry Nouwen also really likes this particular icon, the icon of Christ the Redeemer. Christ the Redeemer is an icon discovered by accident in a dilapidated woodshed near Zavanagood in 1919, with several other icons stored nearby. When they tried to work out where they came from, they were all attributed to the icon painter Andrei Rublev. Although the icon was heavily damaged, it's still considered to be a masterpiece of strength and simplicity. Nouwen suggests that the damage is meaningful in that it shows the face of Christ that appears in the midst of chaos. It is a sad but beautiful face through the ruins of the world. And so I'm going to spend some time enjoying that particular icon, Christ the Redeemer. One of the other things I enjoyed over this Easter weekend was watching some videos, and I watched a video called The Comeback, and I thought I might share that with you. All that I'm going to have to do is to turn the camera around and put it up on the screen so that you can watch it.
It's finished. It's over. There's more of them than us, and they look a lot bigger. The villain's got the girl and his fingers on the trigger. Voldemort, Sauron and Vader reign. It's gone to penalties against the Germans again. It's a terrible feeling when hope is erased, faith misplaced, virtue defaced, gloom embraced, reputation replaced with the taste of disgrace. When you've pushed every door and it's been slammed in your face. When you realise you're third in a two-horse race. So come sit with me on Golgotha's slopes. See human history at its lowest ebb. See the forces of goodness and grace on the ropes. Evil had spoken, last rites read. In a phony gown and thorny crown, he's mocked and knocked and shamed. As he staggers down through an angry town, they spit and hit and hate. Hands that forged galaxies and flung starry trails are pierced and punctured by merciless nails. his body succumbing to brutal infliction. These, the horrors of crucifixion. And as dice are tossed, hope is lost, desolate disciples count the cost. King of the Jews, his headrest embossed, a criminal's killing on Calvary's cross. And as last words cut through foul-smelling air, the whole of the cosmos cries out in despair. It is finished. It's over. But then dawn breaks on Easter Day. Darkness quakes as shadows give way to the light. See, resurrection's the plan, it's why God sent him. And the comeback's on, there's a change of momentum. The powers of damnation in previous jubilation have been hushed and crushed by the Lord of creation. See, he takes the hit, stands where we should have stood. And that's why we call Friday good. And he's back with life and with us and blessed. And that's why we can know it as Sunday best. So to the 4-0 down, to the backs against the wall, listen to his rallying, resurgent call. And to those up against it in brokenness and pain, Easter's story roars, we go again. So thine be the glory, death's lost its sting. Here's to Jesus, the comeback King.
I hope you enjoyed that. It's a wonderful way to summarize all that happened with Good Friday and the wonderful Easter story as well. I did watch some other footage during the course of the last week, and one of the things that I've really enjoyed watching was Andrew Lloyd Webber's production of Joseph and his amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat. I was surprised at how much of it I could remember from way back. I think it was first produced in the 70s. In one of the songs, those marvelous songs, Joseph sings from his prison cell. Now, I reckon I identify with his lockdown song. It goes like this. Close every door to me, hide all the world from me, bar all the windows and shut out the light. Do what you want with me, hate me and laugh at me, darken my daytime and torture my night. If my life were important, I would ask, will I live or die? But I know the answers lie far from this world. Close every door to me, keep those I love from me. Children of Israel are never alone, for I know I shall find my own peace of mind, for I have been promised a land of my own. If we go back to the story of Joseph, isn't it interesting what happened to him? As the youngest of the brothers and his father's favorite, initially he was fairly full of himself, and he bragged quite a lot about his wonderful, amazing Technicolor coat, and also about his ability to dream and the wonderful dreams that he was interpreting. His brothers became quite jealous and furious with him at his arrogance, and initially wanted to kill him, but then they sold him off as a slave. He served as a slave and did really well in Potiphar's household until his master's wife claimed that he had got up to things he shouldn't have. Again in prison, when he was imprisoned, he did really well for himself, and due to his efforts was of great help to the prison governor and the fellow prisoners, whose dreams he was able to interpret. Ultimately, this led him to being freed from prison, where one of those whose dreams he had interpreted ended up working in the Pharaoh's household and was able to suggest that Joseph could interpret the Pharaoh's dreams, which he did. Joseph's reward for being able to do that was that he was made prime minister and given the responsibility to plan for the years of plenty, but also for the years of drought that were to come. Caught up in the drought, far off, his brothers ran out of food and needed help, and they came into Egypt looking for that help. Initially, they didn't recognize their brother, but after his interaction with them, they do recognize him and beg him for forgiveness. He is ultimately also joyfully united with his father, and amazingly, he forgives his brothers without hesitation. If you want to read the full story, it's in Genesis chapter 30, and then 37, and then 39 to 47. So how does Joseph cope with his various lockdowns and things that happen to him? I think there are 4 things we can pick out of that story. The first one is that he always gives his best. In the Pharaoh's household, in prison, as Prime Minister of Egypt, he's always putting his best foot forward. Secondly, he always held on to his integrity. He's the kind of person who tries to do the right thing. He avoids the advances of his master's wife. He acts fairly with the Egyptian Pharaoh and with the Egyptian people. He's able to forgive his brothers. And he stays true to his word to his father, who asks to be buried back in his homeland. If you see that in the end of the story.